un ange propose à sa femme d'aller faire un tour à la rue Saint-André. Tout le monde savait que c'était la rue des putains. Jocelyne le savait comme les autres. Elle accepta pourtant.
Hello. There's a lag. There's latency. If you happen to watch this, I wonder what the heck I'm doing. Okay. I have audio, so that's good. And I've got video, so that's good. It's really early for some folks, though, so I don't think I'm gonna catch everybody awake here either. Maybe I should just focus on the late night ones so people can go to sleep. And go to sleep listening to me talk about reading. I think that's what we're gonna end up with. But I wanted to do these in the morning as well, strictly for anybody who might want to be awake. I'm going to give it a few minutes and see if anybody happens to pop in before I get started on the reading for today, which is so intense. It's really intense. Because it's a continuation of yesterday's, really, I think. It's like more reinforcing of those same ideas, but in a different way, and perhaps with a little bit more clarity. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And also, if I don't end up with a bunch of chatters or doing any card pulls, one of the things I want to talk about today is vision boards. They're so popular, and everybody talks about them, and you're going to manifest your dreams with your vision board. And there are a tremendous amount of good things about the vision board. But there is a lot that is not talked about. Good morning. Yes, it is. It's definitely morning. I wasn't anticipating being, because usually I get up and by this time I'm like really going, and then today I just wasn't. Like, good idea, Nikki. Early in stream. And I was like, oh, it's great. I'll start Sunday morning that way and it'll be a good morning. I'm up. I'm here. I got a crazy reading to do. And you really well, thank you for showing up. I did my stream yesterday. I think Virgil showed up like in the last maybe 45 minutes, half hour ish, maybe, probably less, because it was only like an hour and 20 minutes. But they came in and were listening, but like I was finishing up, so I pretty much talked to myself the whole time, and it worked out fine anyway because I still got to record the reading. I don't know. I was like, I still need the content. I need to do this regularly in order for it to, I can't just like do it. I don't want to do it. I gotta do it. But it'll happen. But I'm gonna sip my coffee first. Sip my coffee for a minute. I know JB said he wanted to come in too, so I'll give him a minute to show up. I feel like this reading is like everybody. It's like a continuation from yesterday too. So if you didn't get a chance to watch yesterday, I think you could get by with just this one anyway, which is kind of funny how that turned out. But I think it's just simply because I'm doing this a pretty yeah, he's a tough one. He's a tough one. He's such a good dude though. we we had a hell of a night with that stream, or afternoon, I should say. Should have had that stream locked in, and for some reason it wasn't. And neither of us can figure out what happened. Because everything was set for like a machine that isn't brand new. So it's like an average machine should be able to handle it. And we had it on higher. Anyway. It's weird. I didn't There's like an extra hour of me thinking about that. So of not sleeping. Because I was thinking about the stream. That's what I do. But at any rate, my aim today is to get through this reading without crying and see if I can do that. And then the Vision Board Pitfalls. I love them. I use them. I just see people use them so badly all the time. And I'm like, putting so much effort into nothing. You can't do that. Why are you doing that? And then they stop doing it because it doesn't work. But they don't realize they're not doing it right. Because we want to. My word for it lately has been pining. People pine for what they want, what they don't have, what they desire. They pine for it. And that emotion, yeah, rise and mansions, like, but then they just sit there and they like don't do anything about like how they're gonna get that money. Like they're just like waiting. It's like, no, you have to actually take steps. There's steps that have to be taken. One time I had I don't like make the fancy ones with like cut out pictures anymore, but I will like come up with a mental picture of something that I want and like a little, like a daydream I can dip into when I'm feeling my vibe and I want to see which way I need to go. Like I'll just dip into my daydream and I can get really detailed about it, and as far as like there's going to be a moment where I'm standing here in this and like I for example with the Sad Fat Luck release show, one of the um yeah, that's just how it works. You're manifesting. One of my favorite ones to tell about, and there's several involving Nikki's Year of Awesome. That Nikki's Year of Awesome was just a year of badass manifestations, and then it continued on for like 2 years. But one of them was the Sad Fat Luck release show when things were uncertain before the solidification of that album. I just so badly wanted to see like him happy with a band and like everybody, and like that was like ultimately the goal. Anyway, fast forward, he's like, yes, I'm gonna do this. I gotta do this. I gotta get this out. Cool, let's do this. Like, let's rock it out. So then it was like, all right, we're gonna have this release show in New Haven, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be there. But I didn't know that there was gonna be another show in Brooklyn like the next day. Like that wasn't a part of my dream at any point. This is before any of this started. I was just visualizing this release show. But in the release show, I was standing in the back, like in this dream, like I kept having of that would like lead off from the daydream. I was standing in the back, not in the front, which anybody that's ever seen me in a show knows where I stand is in the front. I'm so close. He hits me in the head sometimes with his hands when he's flailing around. And I love it. I'm like, sorry, I'm like, it's fine. But that's my spot. Plus, I'm short, so I need to be able to see. And so I'm always in the front. So turning into this dream where I was standing in the back of the show watching it was the weirdest thing ever. But it was kind of cool because I was like looking over the crowd and the crowd was just going nuts, right? And it was like a pretty full venue. And he's up there with a band and they're going crazy. And the energy was just amazing. And I just remembered like that feeling. That was the dream. And then that moment happened. But it wasn't in New Haven at the first one. I was in the front at that one because I was like, nobody's getting in front of me. But I was live streaming it anyway, or recording it. And actually, I live streamed it. And then I recorded it, like saved it. It was the second night. They didn't have anybody to run the table at that one. So me and Helix volunteered to do it, and Danny, and so we that's what we were doing at the shows. Was I was helping out at that one, and so I was standing in the back, like listening, singing along and stuff. I didn't have to stay there the whole time. It just worked out better where it was like I could actually see really good from there. And I was like having a really good time. I was like, oh, I've never seen the show from this perspective. And later I ended up doing another show that was like another Vision Quest, where that happened again. And it was the same situation. Anyway, vision boards can be super, super helpful if you are activating them. I might as well keep talking about that and do the reading later. So might as well talk about the pitfalls now. Yeah, they put the mansions and the Lamborghinis on there. They got like some ridiculous pool that like they found in a magazine that there's only one in the world that exists. And it's like, no, yeah, if you really want that, like you can make that happen. I've seen people end up in their dream homes. Like it's possible you could end up buying that home that exists with only that one pool in the world that looks like that. But is that the part that makes you happy? Because that's not the part that's going to make you happy. What's going to make you happy is the part where it's you love your environment, you think it's beautiful, and you feel comfortable and maybe even luxurious in it. Like, but that's different for everybody. And then you're going to love the fact that you're financially secure because that's what it's going to feel like. Those are the things that you actually love. So when people get like super hyper focused on what everything looks like and all these material items, they neglect to think about what circumstances surround them getting that. Like, you have to have the emotional connection to it. So it's not the item itself, it's the circumstances that lead to that. And if you only hyper focus on the material things, then you are neglecting your like social life and family life and stuff like that. So what you want to do instead is not hyper focus on these material things that you're trying to collect, but rather focus on the conditions that allow you to have the things that you want. And that's going to not just be finances, because if you have a lot of money, you're not going to feel good if you don't have any friends or family. You have to have all of it. You have to feel good. The whole idea behind a vision board is that you assume it's fucking yours. Yeah, it's these are mine because I'm going to create the life that allows me to have these things. And that life feels good to me. When I picture that life, I see myself happy. Well, what are the components of that? This this card reading will get into this. So there's the second half of it. It starts off rough, but then it gets really good. But like ultimately, what are these components? For some people, that equates to they want to be in a romantic relationship that's fulfilling to them. For some people, that is more about their career, where they are happy and feel like they're, in like full on purpose. Right. Like, what kind of a life really matters to you? And that's why, also with like the manifesting, some people think it's cheesy, but like, if you think about it, not everybody wants the same thing. Even though a lot of people use these vision boards and put mansions on them, and there's tons of empty mansions. So some of them might get some, but there's definitely a lot of people that is not what they are looking for. For some people, they're looking more for relationships. They're looking for circumstances that allow them to forge new connections, new bonds. That was one of mine with the whole Nikki's Year of Awesome. It wasn't getting a bunch of stuff. It was having a bunch of experiences. And if they were free, that was cool. Like, that was even better. It was the experiences entirely, which is why it went so effortlessly, because it was like it didn't matter the details behind it as long as the feelings were there. And the feelings were there the entire freaking time. The first one was the most, I think, magical because it involved four people. And I had basically had this kind of vague idea of this trip and what I was hoping for from it. And then we had talked about it, and like the idea of what we had hoped for from this trip had gotten a little bit more detailed and a little bit bigger. And then I started to have dreams about it, which is what often happens when I'm obsessing about something. But the dreams will be a little bit like realistic. They'll actually be a little bit more prophetic. And so in the dream, certain things had occurred. And there was some very, very, very tiny specifics. Um, One of them was a conversation that I'd had with one of the people. And he was talking about Jean Claude Van Damme, which is not uncommon for him. He often talks about Jean Claude Van Damme. It's his favorite actor. He thinks that guy is tops. Um, but it was just funny because like it was on the way to the trip in the dream, and then that's what he was talking about. And it was just like ha 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 ha, but it was funny. So then there was another thing about we were on a walk and we were looking at graffiti, and the graffiti said something. And I can't remember what the graffiti said anymore. The dream graffiti said anymore, but it was really like, whoa, kind of a experience where we were tripping out like, this is crazy. We were just having a great time, right? We're in Chicago, four people, just hanging out the whole fucking day before we go to see Sadistic, opened by Nacho Picasso and Raphael Vigilantics. Probably one of the most epic shows I can think of. Really fantastic show. Yeah, it's the experiences. Like, that's the part. And the thing is like, if you know that shit happens at those events, you can manifest those events. But then you actually manifest the experiences that happen at that event, which is what happened for us in Chicago. And we started on our way, and we stopped to get gas. And there's a discount bin of movies. And the first movie that Derek reaches in and grabs within like 2 seconds is a Van Damme movie. And he's just like, and it was $5. And he was like, it's a sign. I was like, are you going to get it? And he's like, yeah. So he bought it. And we were like, this is a good sign. So we like venture off. And then we get to Chicago and we're walking around and we come across this little piece of graffiti with like a little teddy bear sitting next to it, and it says my polar eyes are my polar eyes are icing or something like that. Like, it was like a play on the words with this little polar bear. And then there was like graffiti of an eye with like the tag. And this was the Altars tour. My polar eyes are icy. Like, the polar eyes are icy. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And we had that moment, and it was like, oh my God, we're having the moment. So I knew at that time that the final experience, well, the experiences were going to happen all the way through, but the final experience, the one that was most significant, was after the show when we actually were like hanging out and talking to him, and nobody believed it was going to happen. and they almost left. And I told them I wasn't leaving. They were like, we're just gonna go, Nick. And I was like, I'm not going. And the bodyguard or the doorman's standing there and he's like, you're all gonna have to leave. I said, he told me to wait here. He's like, next thing you know, boom, he comes through the doors. Hey guys, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. We all went outside and smoked. So it was like, exactly. But it was never about getting anything from the trip. It was just about having fun and seeing this amazing performance and getting to meet the artist. And that launched off into a whole series of adapting that manifestation over and over and over. We just kept doing it, and look at me now. At one point, I was like, I love this. This is so much fun. Now, mind you, that show was the first time I had been to a show in many, 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 many years. But I literally was still in a brace. I had just gotten my drain tube taken out of my arm. So I was standing like on the stage with like my arm like this the whole time. So he was like trying to like protect my arm for me. It was funny. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, yeah, I know. I couldn't miss it though. But yeah, it's the feelings. So people get another thing that they'll get caught up in is they feel like they have to know how they get there. That like they have to know every step of the way. Like I have to this is gonna happen and this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. It's like sometimes that's not how it works at all. You don't have to worry about any of that. The little details that you think of that are important, like in my dream, that uh, you know, that little thing was, it was funny. So it wasn't that it was necessarily important, but there was a lot of energy behind it. So it's like there's a few like, and those are just meant to be like your signs, you know. Right? No, we will definitely go to a show. I will be going to all the shows. I will be going to so many shows. Nobody's gonna be able to stop me. I'm trying to figure out. You know what's funny is I wanted a streaming job. I wanted to be able to get into a position where I could like stream and make money somehow, you know. Uh, which I'm working on it. I'm almost to the point where I can be affiliate. I need to keep streaming a couple more. I need like 4 more hours, and then I need like 12 more followers, and I should be there. So if you happen to know anybody who's interested in tarot or this kind of stuff, refer them to my channel, please. Have them follow me. It will help me a lot. But the goal is this, but it's always been to be self-employed so I can travel and do whatever I want to do. And shows is it. Shows is what I want to do. I love the music, but it's not just the music. It's hanging out with fans. I love hanging out with other music fans. I love meeting new people. I love talking about music. I love experiencing the live music. I love everything about I love standing in line to get some shit signed. I like that too. I like all of it. I like it that my feet hurt and then you get home and you finally get to take your shoes off and you're like, oh, so worth it. But like I like every aspect of it. So that's pretty much that's a lot of what I manifest. But the goal has always been to be able to travel and go see shows. But I have to make a living, obviously. And so making a living where it's like associated with music is very helpful to that. So that all fell into place nicely. It's kind of happened along the way while I was having fun. And that is the point about the vision boards. You got to do some stuff to make it happen. Like you got to actually take action, take steps, do things, make the connections. You have to speak to the person that you feel like you should speak to. So if that means that you're a little bit afraid of talking to them, you might have to like choke it down and do it. And it might not be as bad as you thought. You know, you just got to give it a chance. That might mean that you need to holler at somebody and say, hey, You happen to get that money you owe me? And they pay you back, and you can do what you need to do. It might be that you have to ask a friend for a favor, and maybe you're not good at that. So like sometimes you have to take the action to start the catalyst. That's the catalyst that starts the cycle. That was the hardest part for me too, but I get a job where you have to talk to people. Get a job where you have to talk to people, and you will learn how to talk to people. You'll get stupid good at small talk. And then after I got really good at small talk because I was sitting on hold with people all the time, um, while I was like waiting for answers and stuff, uh, then I got a job tattooing, and I sat there and was drawing on people, and it makes them feel better to talk to them. And they'll be like, "Talk to me," and I'm like, "About what?" And they're like, "I don't care," and I'll be like, "Yeah." So anyway, and I'll just start talking and stuff. But if that's the thing, that is the catalyst to make everything fall into place. Maybe your ultimate goal is that you don't have to talk to people all the time. I used to think that it wasn't, but actually I found out that it was. It was the connection to people that I overall loved about tattooing. That's what I've loved about everything I've ever done. And that's why I think I remain in the art realm, is it's always been about the connection to the people. And I also like to help people. Um, and I'm techie, and I'm usually fairly up on software and internet trends. So I have multiple ways I can assist people in the arts, which I think makes it good for me to do what I do. Um, but it works out. I think it works out pretty good. But yeah, the vision boards, you know, number one, being the hyper control over the situation and what it looks like. I tell people all the time that what when you get what you want, you the first couple times it happens, sometimes people will ignore it or refuse it or push it away because it doesn't look exactly like what they envisioned, or it didn't come the way that they thought it would. Like they miss out on it just simply because they're not willing to be open about the possibility that, like, it'll be intriguing to them, but they just like won't jump on it. And they're like, well, I want to work for this company. It's like, okay, but this company just offered you what you were asking for. Why didn't you take that job? Well, because I want to work for them. Why? Don't you think maybe that the universe was like literally handing you something on a platter that matched exactly what you wanted? And maybe that didn't. You thought it did. It looked like it did, but it didn't. Sometimes you have to acknowledge that, um, you know, I'm here and I'm ready for it. Uh, but that isn't what I thought it was. So it's okay that I don't get that one or that one or that one. The one that is what matches what I need. But in order to do that, you have to know what you need. That's the hard part, I think, about yeah, you want to be able to dictate it all. And we're all like, we have free will. It's like, yeah, you have free will, but also you have a higher conscience that's trying to speak through you. Fucking listen to it. Like, I'm gonna have to, I think I put non-kid friendly on this. You have to listen to it. And people don't. They have this gut instinct that they will work against. That is, are you okay? Jeez, Franny's choking. I left the dogs in here so they don't freak out while I'm out of the room. Go get a drink. Uh, um, it's not always going to look like what you think it's going to look like. It's more likely that it's going to feel that way, or it's going to fall into your lap, or be easy, or convenient, or flow in, and that's what you're looking for. Like, go with what feels like you've taken the steps and you feel like it's there. A lot of people can tell when it's like right there too. They're like, I just feel like it's like right, what I want is like right around, and it is. It always is. but you're sitting there wanting it. So that's the energy you're giving it, not that it's yours and it will fall into place at the absolute perfect moment. It's trusting, and that's really hard because we don't know what we're trusting. I mean, that's the reality of it. Like, what the fuck am I trusting, Nikki? I don't know. I don't. I'm gonna bullshit you. I don't know exactly how it works either. Alls I know is that when I stop wanting something or questioning something or doubting something, I usually find that it shows up in my life, sometimes multiple times with many options. Sometimes it's like a plethora and it doesn't even matter, and I can just that's what I'm going with. We're going with this one right now. Yeah, it's what we're not understanding, what most people aren't understanding, is that we ultimately are the ones that control everything anyway. And so we're like, it's got to be like this, but it's like, okay, but you didn't take the 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 path that led to that, because maybe you, like, in some cases, like maybe you skipped a step, maybe you didn't want to deal with some bullshit and you ran past it trying to get ahead of the line, and you get up to this job, and when it comes down to it, you're missing like one aspect, and if you had instead handled this thing back here, you would have that aspect and it would line up. So sometimes it's just like you didn't take the actions to actually get that. I'm not a person that believes manifestation necessarily can be some miracle all the time. There are some things that can happen in a way that we just simply do not understand. It's just too big. I like to describe it as like a puzzle piece. Like the entire universe is this giant, 5D puzzle. And there are pieces just falling into place everywhere. But it is so big and it is so complex that there is absolutely no fucking way that you can even think to conceive of all the areas that it's being worked on. You're over here in your section on your puzzle, and you got your couple little pieces and you're trying to figure it out. You don't know what's going on out there. But eventually, through courses of actions, you finally get one piece into place, and then this piece falls into place, which makes it look like this piece goes like this, and then this piece falls into place. And that one's not just your piece, this one's connected to this other thing. All of these pieces eventually fit together, but sometimes you don't know what that looks like. Sometimes you need to allow things around you to be occurring. Sometimes you just need to be dealing with what's right in front of you, and you'll get it to where it needs to, and then everything clicks. It's just not necessarily that you get to see, control, or understand how sometimes these things happen. But a lot of times these are not material items that fall into our lap. So people like that are just like, oh, I'm going to manifest this, mansion. No, you're not. No, if you don't have a family member that like owns one, you're gonna win one in a contest. There's not a lot of chances for that to occur. Like that's kind of wild. That's kind of out there. But there are ways that you could realistically end up in a position where, if that's really truly what you want to live in a mansion. I mean, you could end up as an entrepreneur running one as a bread and breakfast that you live in, like, and it could be dope and you could love it and be like, yeah, I live in this fucking mansion. I live over here. Yeah, I rent out the rest of it. Airbnb, making mad bucks, just chill out all day. Like, it's totally feasible. But it's got to be realistic to you. You've got to be able to come up with something that actually makes sense in order for you to trust it and believe it. Otherwise, it don't make sense. You're not getting that mansion. If your intention is just to like end up a millionaire, well, good luck. That vision board isn't going to work. There's work that goes behind it, especially the ones, my favorite ones are like Bob Proctor, who's like talking about like how, it's like, oh, you got to do this and you got to do this. And it's like, yeah, Bob Proctor, you also got to start by being not an entirely broke dude and like a white privileged man He started off in a pretty good position. He didn't really, and yeah, he worked his way up, but there was a lot of steps involved, and he doesn't necessarily tell everybody all those steps. And he didn't have some of the challenges that some people have. So, like, he makes it like you could just like, I'm a millionaire. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. That's not how that works. But not everybody wants to be a millionaire. That concept of being a millionaire does not make me happy. The concept of being financially secure and stable makes me happy. The concept of having a living environment that I'm comfortable in as a stable place for me to retreat, and then as well as one that I can travel in, that makes me happy. So sorry, JB. I'm sorry to break it down for you. I mean, can you build a mansion? If you can build a mansion, you could have a mansion. Buy yourself a plot of land, spend the next 5 years building your mansion. 10 years? I don't know how long it takes to build a mansion by yourself. It's not my manifestation. My manifestation is touring. I'm not in a band. It is though. That's what's sad. I'm like trying to like, how can I be relevant? To just go to shows every night. That's my manifestation. That's my mansion. But I have to do shit in order to make that how is my hair just falling out? Oh, there we go. You have to do shit to make that happen. And you have to believe that it's possible. Even if it seems a little bit of a stretch, you can still believe that's possible, but like it has to be somewhat realistic. And then it is about taking action, and the action has to be coordinated and in line with and consistent with what you're looking for. If what you're looking for, but also, you don't know necessarily what it looks like, so you just kind of have to go by feel. I think that's the most important thing I can tell people with a manifestation board is if you are receiving any kind of intuition, any type of intuition about a person, about a situation, about a job, about a move, about a car, whatever the situation is, act on it, especially if it feels good. Now, some people will be like, this feels bad, and they don't know the difference between what feels bad, like actually bad, and what feels like anxiety because it's fear. That fear and anxiety of something new, of doing something, of stepping beyond your comfort zone, if it is pushing on you and you are feeling anxious about it, it is because that is what you're supposed to do usually. But if the thought of it just, oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And it feels bad, and you just, the thought of it makes you sad, the thought of it makes you depressed, the thought of it makes you angry, that's a whole different situation. Those are the things we do not go along with. That is anti-gut. A pet bear. They do have. You could totally have a pet bear. There's a series of events that you would have to go through. There's some wildlife training courses. But there's certain countries and there's certain breeds of bear that are smaller. But, or you could have a bear sanctuary. You could get retired bears out of the zoos and circuses and let them live on a sanctuary. There's lots of ways that you could have a pet bear. Trust me, I thought about this. I want one too. For a long time, my dream was to have an animal sanctuary. And part of me thought about this a lot recently when I was like, no, I think I want to retire and travel. I was like, no, I thought you were going to, what happened to your animal sanctuary? But, it is your strong suit. See, that is defeating talk. You have challenges that you need to learn to overcome when it comes to learning science and biology. But it doesn't mean you're not good at it. But no, there are a number. Actually, like I used to work in reptile rehabilitation, and we worked with a tangent organization because we were very small, and they were a much, 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 much larger organization, and none of them had formal education in any of those fields, but they did have various like certifications in handling and caring for certain animals. So they'd undergone training from the professionals in order to like foster wild animals that needed injury healing and stuff. It's very cool at any rate, because they would often have animals that just about anyone else would not have. And but yeah, they, that's how they spend, and they still do it. They still have it. I could not hold up. I couldn't do it anymore. It was too hard. But the idea of having an animal sanctuary, I really want big cats. I want all the big cats out of the circus and zoos because I feel bad for them, and all the primates too. Primates don't belong in cages. No animals belong in cages. I really like. I think that's why the sanctuary is difficult for me, because it's like, yes, I would be providing a place where they could live out the rest of their life in relative comfort based on, compared to what they had lived. But then it's like, but then also still know that they're miserable and they're not getting the life that they deserved. And I'm like, just adequately doing it for them. It's like not quite enough. I would feel so bad. I'd be like, I'm sorry. All the time. I don't think I can do it. I just did the reptiles were enough, man. Losing a dragon, a bearded dragon that you've like been caring for. We had this one that we cared for. He came to us a geriatric dragon. So we had him for like 3.5 years, but he was very old when we got him. And he was always like a little cripply old man. And like he just always needed a little bit extra. And so like I just gave this to him because it was like nobody's gonna adopt him. He's like so old and decrepit, and like he's been so sick his whole life. And even when he was healthy, like they can't rebound after so long of being neglected. And after a couple of years, of course, he eventually passed of old age. He like stopped eating, and we knew it was time, and it was just like so miserable because I'm just like, I know it's time for him, but I don't think I can do it anymore. I love them and the babies. I love the babies, but oh my god, I think I want to see them in their environment. I want to see in the environments that still remain. I want to like travel to these various environments and go on expeditions where I'm able to just be in that natural element and experience what these animals should experience, I guess, and see them in their natural. That's what I want to do now anyway. It is what it is. So yeah, vision boards. I can go on tangents. This is why I can talk forever. I can go on a tangent and then go back to it too. So yeah, when making a vision board, what I think is the most important for people to do is to really, really, really pick a goal that is realistic for you first. Don't try to go so big that you don't believe it's possible or you're skeptical about it. That doesn't make any sense at all. Do not do that. And a lot of people will just, I'm going to prove this wrong. Like, yeah, you are. You just did. It's not going to work for you now. But do something. Start realistic. Start extremely realistic. Now, it can be so many different kinds of things. For some people, that might be a race or a promotion of some type. They've worked really hard at this place. They feel like they deserve it. This is what they ultimately desire that will make their living or working situation there better. For some, that might be a new apartment. or a better living situation or a new car. One of my, aside from Nikki's Year of Awesome, before Nikki's Year of Awesome happened, there was some manifesting that occurred that was successful on a much smaller scale. And that is where I built my confidence. So I started with, I just want my license back, which I know I have to take action to do. But the circumstances on like how I get it there, I don't care. Like if I get help or if I work it or whatever, it's just going to work out for me. I'm going to get my license back and a car. I did not care how I got there. I just needed to get back on the road. I needed my license and I needed a car. So I picked a car. I picked a car that I honestly, realistically believe that if it came down to it, I could afford to buy. It was like a 2005 black Cavalier or something like that, right? Very, very realistic. Like, when you haven't had a car in a few years, you don't care what kind of car you have. Does it fit everybody in it? Does it drive? There we go. So that's what the goal was. And I took a picture of this very average black Cavalier and put it on my desktop, on my computer, on my phone, printed off a picture of it, had it in my bedroom next to my bed. Like, this is going to be my car. This car. My car. And then you have to take it the next step, because now it's like, okay, here's my car, but like you can just look at it and be like, that's my car. That's not going to get you the car. I had to look at that car and I had to know it was my car. I had to imagine myself, feel myself driving that car. And what does it feel like when you have not had a license and a car in a tremendously long time and you sit behind the wheel of your car for the first time? What does that feel like? There's a level of freedom there that if you've never owned a car, you don't understand. But if you had one and lost one and then get one again, it's a very intense feeling to be like, oh my God, I can leave. It's the feelings behind it. So it was the feelings behind what I cultivated from that. My vision board then expands, and I don't need pictures of it. I can feel it. I look at the car and I have a picture of the inside of the dash, like from the driver's perspective. And I look at that and I memorize it so that every time I'm on my way to work, I'm looking at the road and I'm seeing that dash in front of me and I'm driving myself to work. And I'm just, it's not pining for it. I don't want it. It is. This is what I'm doing. I'm driving myself to work. And every opportunity that came to me through that, every time I was slow, I'd be like, you need a client right now. So I'd be like, hey, open up, blah, blah, blah. Start posting on the internet, start getting clients. Finally, at some point, I just started telling people what was going on. I'm like, look, this is what happened to me, and I'm trying really hard to get my license back, and I have to pay this ridiculous amount of money every month to get it restored. And then once I pay this amount, they're going to restore it. And then I have to continue for 2 years in order to keep it. I cannot miss a single payment. Don't start. So I cannot miss a single payment or I will lose it again. And then I will have to start like over. So I need to stay busy. And if anything that you can do to help me is appreciative, and people were just making referrals for me. They're just sending me referrals, and everyone that came to me, I rolled with it. There was a few that showed up that just felt icky right away, and I was like, never mind, that one's not for me. Next thing you know, the next one comes in the door and it's perfect. And I get to the point where I finally get my license and I'm super, super excited, but I didn't get that behind the wheel feel. Like, it felt really good, but it wasn't that. So I was excited, and I'm just sitting there like thinking about like, okay, now I need to save money for my car. And one of my friend clients walked in the door and said, hey, I heard you got your license back. Congratulations. It's like, yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you. Like now, and she's like, "Did you find a car yet?" I said, "No, no, no. I'm actually, I'm just working that out in my head right now. Like, what's next, and get myself a car." And she said, "I have an offer for you. I want a chess piece. My friend wants a chess piece, so we're gonna give you this car out here. Come see it." And I walked around the corner, and it was a 2003 Black Cavalier. It's like I still remember. I can't even like not smile when I remember that because it was the joy that I felt in my heart, like it was exploding out of me. I bawled. I did not know that that opportunity would show up. I wasn't expecting it. I just kept working at it. I knew what the end result was going to feel like. I knew what it was going to feel like when I got behind the wheel of that car after like 5 years of not having a car, not having a license. And that is exactly the experience I got every step of it. And I upgraded 2 years later or 3 years later in a very similar manner. It was a little bit more scary though. So here's another pitfall about vision boards that I want to throw out here. Because if you're not careful, you can mess yourself up too. So things were going fairly well, but of course I didn't have like a ton of extra money. While I had the Cavaliers when I shattered my elbow. So there wasn't a lot of extra money for me to like upgrade the car at that point. It was just glad to have a car. But there was some problems with the car and it needed to be upgraded and I didn't have the money and I was like, man, I'd really like to get like an SUV or something that I have like more room in. I can take the dogs, go camping and stuff. So I just decided that I was going to pick one and do the same thing again. And I picked it was actually a black Equinox, and which is what I drive right now. That's another manifesting. That's like a whole extra story. Anyway, I was driving along, minding my business, doing what I needed to be doing, and I got broadsided by a woman who thought it turned green and it was red. And I didn't see it till last second, so I like barely swerved around, so she hit like the back end of my car right behind me. So like blew out all my windows. It was absolutely terrifying. Spun me out in the middle of the road, destroyed my car. Of course, I only had like PLPD insurance on it. So it's a mini torque. You know, you get $1,000. And I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do? And I just now I don't have a car. So I got home and like I don't know, worked it out. Ended up my brother just happened to have talked to one of his friends who just happened to mention that he had a car for sale. It was a Blazer. It was a white Blazer, 4x4. And he was willing to take exactly the amount of money that I had available out of that mini torque. Uh, so I needed money, you know, to get the insurance swapped and the new registration and stuff too. So I gave him exactly the rest of it, and I had my Blazer. The Blazer served itself well, and I kind of got off the track of manifesting a vehicle for a while, but then you know, it's an older vehicle, so things start to happen. Hi, Benna. We're talking about vision boards and all the wild shit that people try to go after, and then like I'm talking about stuff that I've actually manifested. So that actually works. So the I was driving the Blazer, and you know things started going wrong, and I was just like, this isn't gonna last me much longer. I need to manifest a better vehicle. I need to make this happen. And I know that this is not going to just fall into my lap again. Like if I want a better vehicle, that means I'm gonna have to like do more to make that happen. Like there no more like, oops, here's a car situations. That's just not how it works. And so I went back to my original picture of the Equinox. And I was like, this is the one I want. Like I want this black. I think it was like a 2009 in my picture. I had 3 pictures of it. The most important picture was the inside, the dash picture. And now I have elaborated this story for other people before, but the short version, because I do want to get into the card reading. The short version being that this car had actually been there the whole time. Because I had like stopped acting towards my vision board, it just wasn't moving forward. But then as soon as I reactivated that vision, it like all of a sudden that vehicle became available. Now I'll explain what happened behind the scenes, because I didn't know any of this until one day my brother showed up and said, I'm going to give you a car. Thank you for watching my kids over the years. And if you could possibly help me a little bit, um, I'm going to need your help with them. Okay, sure. Uh, I did not know what the car was at that time, but it was my Equinox. So what had happened behind the scenes is essentially when I initially needed a new car and I was looking for one and I decided I wanted an SUV and I was looking at the Equinox, apparently my brother had located an Equinox, but his wife's mother, her car had broken down as well, and so he was looking for a vehicle for her and tried to get this Equinox, and the guy just basically said he decided he didn't, or his wife didn't want him to sell it. So he went about looking for a different car for her and had to do that for her. So once he got her a car, you know, they were good to go. And then at some point down the road, now he's wanting me to help and he's willing to, he knows that I need a car now because my Blazer is falling apart, and he starts looking for a car for me. And so he's looking around and he found a couple of vehicles that just weren't panning out. Next thing he knows, the guy that had previously said that the Equinox wasn't available, they had now decided that they were willing to sell it because my brother was selling his boat. He didn't want to store it. He hasn't been able to use it and needed repairs, etc. and so on. So he was deciding that he was going to sell his boat. The guy is like, I'm willing to get rid of this Equinox if you want to trade for the boat. So now my brother has this Equinox to give me that had been sitting there the entire time that I had been dreaming of it. You never know what's happening in the other corners of the puzzle, ever. So you can't doubt it, but it has to feel realistic. You have to know that there is some chain of events out there somewhere that can align and allow you to be in the kind of position that you want to be into. Now, you don't have to. I actually have pictures on my Instagram. Hi, Melody. I have a picture on my Instagram where you can compare my manifesting pictures to my actual vehicle and see how close they are. I don't necessarily think that people have to do that. You don't have to necessarily be that specific. It was more about feeling what it felt like, and it just happened to line up. So it was what it felt like to have that thing happen to me, and just knowing it was happening, and I was living it every day, and that it was just working. So yes, hi, Lil Levity. How are you feeling? Is bored? Oh, it's Sunday. Sundays are actually, that's why I decided to do Sundays, because I usually get bored. I just sit here for a while and not do anything, and I was like, I might as well stream. So, I just got done talking about vision boards and some of the common pitfalls and how people make it cheesy and therefore completely worthless and ineffective, when in effect it can be very, very beneficial if you know what you're doing and if you don't try to cheese out on it and try to actually be realistic about it. Like, It's about picking a goal and focusing, and then just kind of trusting and allowing your instincts to guide you along the way. Everything's out there for the taking. That's realistic, and not everybody wants the same thing. So, there wasn't that many people that were trying to get my 2007 Black Equinox. It was just me. Yeah, most people might think that was a fucking. Oh, did you? Yeah. I just have my the Lego thread. Yeah, I don't think people understand that not everybody is like good at the same thing. I don't know. They mean well, but I'm good at tedious pieces, but also I'm on medication for ADD. So that does something, I think. Like, but um so I didn't get into this tarot reading yet because there's a lot here, and I wanted to wait until there was at least a few folks here to listen rather than me talking to myself as I was yesterday. That what is he really? Aw, Rob. One of my best friends is a Lego fanatic as an adult. And 1 second, I'm gonna yell at my dog. Okay. Yeah, my good friend John is phenomenal Lego builder, and I'm very jealous about it. I will sit there and watch him do it, and I think what I'm good at is building pieces of furniture. So like putting the pieces together, I'm really good at that. I think that was something I had to learn how to do though, because I remember panicking when I first had to look at those instructions. And my default would always be like to ask my dad or brothers. And then at one point I didn't have my dad or brothers available. And that was a lot for me to deal with. So I would ask them. But then eventually being a single mom, and I had to put my kids' crib together by myself. That was humbling. I had no idea what I was doing. Um, well, my kid's dad was supposed to help me. Like we all sat down to do it together, and then he got mad and like disappeared and left. So I just put it together myself. But then since then, like after that one time, I did it, and then I was like, I don't need anybody's help. I do it myself. So now I'm just stubborn, and I put it all together myself. But yeah, I had a friend on Facebook that was struggling, and I was just like, just send me the picture of the instructions and lay out all the parts, and then send me pictures of those, and I'll tell you where they are and which ones they are. So I walked her through building this thing, and now she's like way more confident. She's like, you like walked me through building furniture on Facebook. Like, whatever. So yeah, I I don't like pulling groceries up staircases in general. My kid was laughing at me because I take like 15 bags in. I'm like, this is what I do. He's like, you don't have anything to prove. Like, but I do. I am ADHD club. Yeah, Ben, I was like 34 when they were like, "Did you ever consider maybe you have ADD?" I was like, "No, no, because I can nerd out on something for like 15 hours, And they're like, yeah, but did you like forget to eat and then you almost pee your pants when you're doing that? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, that's ADD. Yeah, like yeah, that's what I'm proving. I'm not proving not doing 2 trips. That's what I'm proving. So I did used to live on the second floor, and I lived there by myself with my kid. And my kid was like in like I don't know, first grade, second grade. So occasionally when you get home late from some player, um, you have to like yeah, you have to like carry your kid upstairs, and there's like a bunch of stuff. You got to carry that upstairs too. So you get really good at putting the kid on one shoulder and like 57 bags on the other arm. And like, I actually one time carried up groceries, a computer tower, and my child at the same time. At the same time. Because I wasn't going back downstairs, it was cold. Um, yeah. The first time I realized that like I actually did have ADD and possibly was on the spectrum, I was reading an article and it was just like I forgot what the title was really catchy, but it was just basically like I was a crappy mom. like, like I'm just not one of the moms that can do it all. Sorry, folks. But I read this article. It was basically this woman who had lived a very similar life that I had up until that point. That if set to focus on literally one thing, like you only have one responsibility, that's all you got to do. Like you can make that work with enough degree of success and consistency that you're okay. So sometimes people with ADD are fine in school because they're not also working. They're not also taking care of children. They're not also taking care of a household. They just have to work or go to school. Some kids try to go to school and then they go home and their life is chaos. Or they also have to work. And so now ADD is a major problem and they're not functioning at school, and then the school sees it and goes, oh, wait, whoa, whoa. So, like at my house, I was the oldest, and I was a big reader, and I would just disappear into my room for hours and hours and hours, and nobody really noticed, and everything was fine until like my brothers started getting older and it started getting noisier and more difficult at home, and then I was old enough that I needed to get a part-time job if I wanted to have any money. I was social life, so now I have all this extra stuff happening in my house and in my head, and my grades suffered. But it didn't really become obvious until, which learning, yeah, people on the spectrum get along with people on the spectrum, but just because we get it, we're like so awkward and weird, and like we have our things, and you're just like, yeah, yeah, you're cool, do your thing, I'll do my thing, and it's like, oh, you hyperfixate on a certain subject for like 17 days straight, and then you know everything about it, and you want to tell me? Tell me about it. I'm down to hear it because I want to know too now, and I might do some of my own hyperfixating later. So, yeah, neurodiversity. The article basically was like talking about this woman who that she was like kind of keeping her shit together, and then she had a kid, and like the first couple months when she's home and it's just her and the kid and everybody's there to help, like the house was clean and the baby was happy and everything was fine. She didn't have to go to work or anything. She had no issues. But what happens is that everybody stops showing up to fucking help you. And like immediately afterwards, like, oh, you're 3 weeks in? Yeah, you're good now. And they like ignore you. You're on your own. Now you're trying to take care of this baby who has all of a sudden decided that they don't like anything because they all change so drastically. And I like neurodivergent too. That's my favorite one because I'm just like, no, I don't like your path. I'm divergent. Um, but so you're by yourself with your baby, and you realize that you haven't done dishes in 2 weeks, except baby bottles, and you haven't really actually eaten properly, and you kind of feel a little faint, and now you have to go back to work. So there was always something that suffered. Always, I just couldn't do all three. either the house was usually what happened is my house was trashed. I would keep like the important areas where I live, like the bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room, were functional. I wouldn't let them like become overrun. But I always had dirty dishes, tons of them. I always had a ton of laundry. And the playroom and like where I kept the baby stuff was just always fucking crazy. Just overrun. I struggled a lot, and then I had to go back to work. So like at work I'm not performing at best because I'm tired, and I know when I get home, like now I have to take back over the baby who misses me, and I feel bad if I don't spend time with my baby. So it's like at that point, I'm reading this article and I'm reading this woman describe her life. I'm going, you mean that's a thing? That's just not me being a fucking failure? Like, are you kidding me? There's like an explanation for this? They're like, yeah, the diagnosis. My whole life, people were like, you know, you're lazy, you're a scatterbrain, you just can't keep it together, you know, this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, shower. Forgetting to shower is like a real neurodivergent thing. I have to remind myself, like, wait, when did you shower? Did you shower yesterday? Did you? Did you get in the shower? Like, but yeah, it's there's so much. Oh yeah, little levity. I saw your post about that. That is, people, they don't understand how it works. They don't understand that that actually is soothing to your brain. Um, but what is probably the only way that that's going to help the situation in this thing is maybe if you can come up with some environmental changes or suggestions that would help you, like if there's something that would help you do better, like do you need a walkthrough on something again so that it becomes more muscle memory? Or do you need a better explanation of something? Is there some bad organization? You know what I mean? Like sometimes they don't get that because I listen to music a lot when I'm doing stuff. One of the things I notice though, it does depend on what kind of music I'm listening to. Um, I can't listen to music with words if I want to concentrate on stuff that involves high detail because I'll start thinking about the words too much. I'll start singing, and so I can't do it. But I'll listen to like Televangel or like Blue Sky Back Death or something that's like just melodic and beat oriented, and it's mostly fairly uplifting. And yeah, talking to people at work helps too. I actually am really productive when I talk to people. Um, when I'm doing physical things, I'll say it that way. When I'm doing mental things, I cannot talk to people. I will be talking to people and not doing any of the mental things. But yeah, it's really you have to they leave you in a position where you have to be able to think critically about what's happening in your own, like what situations are best for you, where you thrive, and then try to like because they don't know what to do at all. Even if they are interested in helping, with a lot of times they are not. Um and maybe there's a way that there can be like a more supportive, um I don't know how to word what I want to say. Oh, I get it. Yeah, that's awful. So you're literally like taken out of the environment where you can engage with people and yeah, I was gonna say maybe one thing that I do a lot all the time to people that are my friends and such, but you could even just save them up and then decide if you want to send them out later. Um, I leave vocal notes for myself. I leave voice text notes for myself. I'll like rant. I have a voice recorder and I will literally go off. One time I went off for like 37 minutes And then I like just left it because I was like, I don't think I should send that out. That's a lot. And I listened to it later and I was just like, I'm glad I didn't send that. Like it was just, some of it was relevant. But what happened later is I was able to actually then have a conversation about the parts of my vocalization that I'd recorded that were still relevant to me. And I was just able to say it so much better. Body doubling. Yeah, I've been using Zoom and Discord a lot to communicate with people recently, because as much as I like to think that I can just be home all the time, I am absolutely, absolutely unhappy without being around people. I need to be around people. So this is one way that I've been in engaging more humanly and less text. The text is just killing me. Um, Recently was trying to have a conversation with a friend over text, and then we just both like instantly started going to voice text because it was just like, I can't talk on the phone with you right now, but I have my headphones and I will listen to you, and then I can record a response, and then you can listen to it, and we'll go back and forth like this because this text forever and ever, and we haven't seen each other in over a year, and it's just getting difficult. It's difficult. So that's like the default now. I just go to the texting when I feel like my text is too complicated. But that's why I wonder if that might be helpful, just because then you can't, and you saved it, like you saved it for later. So it's just not off into the void. You can go back and listen to it later and be like, what was that point that I made earlier? Yeah, I want to bring that up to somebody or whatever. It's there, and you're not having to dismiss your thoughts, you're not having to stuff your thoughts down or hide them, and you're not being left alone with them. But also, like, you can destroy them if you want to later. It's really easy to get caught up in that cycle, especially when you're going through um, all these big changes in your life, where you have literally like went from one life to another very recently. There's so many uh, resurgences of feelings of trauma that come from not only the fresh situation, but are wounds that have been ripped back open in some ways. Things that maybe you had been hurt before, and then this was in some ways jabbing at that same wound. So then it's even more intense, and then so you're literally like day to day processing that trauma again. And so that's a lot to go through. And I'm not sure how your workplace is about stuff like that, but uh, definitely, if you can, find some means to be able to communicate all this stuff out so you're not left with it is the best way. But a lot of emotions have been coming out recently. The reading yesterday talked a lot about yeah, it's all, it keeps getting reactivated. Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so glad that is happening. The support there is just immense because that's so different than what is that what happens in a lot of situations. And it's like just really nice to hear that you're getting support, because it does happen way too often. It's really, really disgusting. Um, but yeah, yesterday's reading, if you didn't get a chance to hear it, there was a lot going on there, about rebuilding, and the fact that we had a lot of people had, have recently been struggling, and then there was this big was almost like this, like you could breathe for a minute, and then it just like came crushing back. Maybe it was just me. I don't know. It just felt like I had a breather, and then it just came crushing back. It's just so much. And then I pulled the cards this morning, and I was like, oh, it was just like a reiteration of yesterday's reading. Um, but yeah, I am so glad too that that's happening for you, and you're able to work through at least this aspect. It's not, yeah, it's been rough, man. It's been rough. Anyway, I still haven't done the reading yet. Wow, I started at 10. Started at 10. I'm still talking. This is what I mean about it. I used to talk all day. I don't need much to go off of. And that's my superpower. Coming up with shit to talk about. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many people involved with that, with that situation. It's like there's numerous people have been harmed by this person's behavior. So there's numerous people that suffer now. I mean, there's a level of trust you have to put into these people, and then to find out that they were not who you thought they were. Yeah, that's really difficult. It's really difficult. I mean, and for some, I guess maybe that's where this reading could be applicable for some people. The specific tarot reading that I came up today is, like I said, very heavy to begin with, and then it reaches a point where it finally kind of reveals what these latest tests have been from, and why these bumps in the road have existed, and what these challenges mean, and why they're important. Um, Sometimes when you feel like you're being tested, like, I don't know, maybe you are. Ever feel like it's like, is this trying to see like where the edge of my sanity is? Because we're real close. Like, I'm not sure I can keep going. And then something finally gives, and you're like, oh, yeah. And then it fucking hits you again. Oh, see. Oh, I don't think I said anything important. I was just blabbing about blabbing. So yeah, this reading that I pulled this morning, it started off with a Tower card. So the Tower card. Let's see if it'll show up there. Trying to get a like perfect positioning. Tower. If you're familiar with the decks, you already know what the Tower means. Something that we have spent time building up and spent time constructing. It is a lot of energy and effort. It involves people around us. It's not just one thing. The tower, there can be many towers in your life, or there can just be the tower. But the idea of the tower remains the same, regardless of whether it's talking in the micro or the macro. It falls. It is the things that you have used to construct that tower have become outdated, weak, unusable. Some of them no longer apply to the situation. Maybe your tower just doesn't suit you at all anymore. So the tower is about ripping down these concepts of what your reality is. And it is brutal. It is like the most brutal card. It is the most brutal card in the deck. It's always the only one that's harder is the death card, because that's the end of the cycle. The tower card is like, it's kind of the end of the cycle, but we're not going to take it all away. We're not going to completely start you over. It's not a full-on rebirth. This is just something that you thought was good, that you thought was working out fine, that you were fairly happy with or acceptable, that was acceptable to you. Maybe your circle of friends, maybe your job situation, maybe your housing situation, maybe something going on in your family. Or it could be a lot of things. It could be a number of factors. Why do I still have little hairs falling out of my head? So the tower. What happens, and what I like to use as an analogy, if you were to build, if each brick in your tower was some experience, some person, um, some education or truth that you had learned, and you build this tower up, by the time you reach, say, 20 years old, most of the crap that you learned before you were like 15, you realize is pretty much garbage. There's all of a sudden a bunch of cracks in those bricks. You start crumbling away a little bit. Then you get into college, if you go to college, or you get into real life if you're going in that direction, and you start to realize that there is even more of these bricks that are completely, they're not safe. They're going to collapse at some point. If you don't tear it down, it's going to collapse. That's literally the tower. If you don't tear it down, which you won't, because it's your reality and it's scary, it will collapse. At least that's what it feels like. It feels like it's collapsing. But if you take a little bit closer look to it, uh, it there's this figure. I don't know if you can see. There's this figure here, and they're standing at the gate, and this eye in the center has the fire coming out of it, and it's all connected. The eye goes all the way through to all these different levels from the figure, and this reality is so much bigger than they are in their day-to-day life here on Earth, right? And this destruction is coming at all levels of all of these things. But this figure is not panicking. This picture is somewhat a part of the orchestration of this. It is because you have outgrown it. It's because it no longer suits you. It no longer fits you. It no longer is. Have you ever had a foundation? I mean, it depends on what you build it with. Some people don't, because if you it takes time sometimes to find those sturdy bricks. And for some people, they'll start with bricks that are a little bit less sturdy because that's what they have to work with. And then later they get to tear it down, and it always turns out to be better after you've rebuilt it, because just having a day with this little fly coming at me. Just stop. When we let the tower fall or we take it down, you kind of step back and you start to take stock of things. You start to analyze what has really been happening in your life. Say your relationship ends and you get into your new apartment. Things are different, right? You have all these things in your head. You start thinking about what's different. And a lot of times people will find that they start realizing that there are some truths that still stand, but there are some other things that they've realized that they no longer believe, or there's some aspects of life that they no longer want in their life. And they start really kind of taking stock of like what is worth salvaging and what is not. And by this, you start to hoard more of the layers, better bricks, better quality building materials. Because now you know it doesn't work and you get rid of the stuff that doesn't work. And every time you rebuild your tower, you get better at it. And it takes less time and it becomes more high quality. Some people will spend so much time building their tower they never stop to look to see that the foundation has been crumbling for some time. Uh, so then they're very shocked when it all falls down. That doesn't mean that the bricks that they used at the top will be totally destroyed. Some of them might be usable. But the idea is that, yeah, you clear that slate and you clear it of anything that no longer suits you, no longer fits your life, that is no longer um, functional, strong enough. Sometimes you have to make your own bricks. You know, sometimes you have to be the bricks that build this tower. You are the stonework. Your experiences and your choices and the people that you bring around you, or not. Sometimes we want more people in our life, and then we realize that we've really got all the people that we need, and possibly even more than a lot of people have. And so that's enough to start with. It's really about taking stock of what you have left. The Tower card is is often described as that scorched earth, that destruction of your reality. But I think of it more as an opportunity to start on a fresh slate with better materials, better building knowledge, better experiences, and maybe some help. You know, you might have a friend that shows up along the way and they say, all right, well, let's clean this mess up, I guess. I just finished cleaning up mine. I'll help you out for a minute. That's the fresh start. It's painful to watch what you've built be destroyed. It's painful to watch it taken down, to watch it, resonating into total rubble and or just disintegrating into total rubble, and that hurts. Because it's like anything that you've put your time and energy into, whether it is a job or it is a relationship, you've put all this time and energy into that, and you didn't do it because you expected it to disappear. You did it because it mattered to you and you expected it to have this long-lasting, effect. Tower card, we start at a place where we have recently watched a number of things that no longer suit us and are no longer safe for us be cleared away. And there is a great deal of heartbreak in looking at a forest that has burned down when it first happens. And that's where we're at right now. But we also know that when these things happen, that when it's naturally caused, it does eliminate brush and some overgrowth and such, of course. We're not going to get into ecology, but later you go back and you can see that there is all kinds of new growth, and there's a new fresh landscape here, and there's an energy here that seems like it's a little bit wiser. So the Tower card, yeah, some towers are not as sturdy as they look. Sometimes they're made of plastic. Like, this is not what my tower is made of. It really comes down to like doing the hard stuff. One of the hardest things I've ever had to experience recently and in the past is recognizing when there is an individual in your life that, as much as you care about them and you love them, they are not adding anything to your life. Maybe they did at one point. Maybe you desperately needed them at one point, but now it just seems like it's more effort to keep them there than it is to just let things happen as they are. And it's not that you have to destroy that relationship. Sometimes you just switch paths, and that the connection just isn't there the way it used to be. It is what it is. But so the Tower card is kind of where we're standing. We've kind of watched this destruction take place, whether you orchestrated it or it happened on its own. You're standing at a point where you can now pick up the pieces of what is salvageable to you and what is important to you, and it will have stayed intact. If that's the case, it will stay intact. And then we build again. Um, there, say I have notes. The fire card, the will position, which is interesting. To come right after this is the Seven of Wands. It's kind of perfect though, because what it says is that there is this resolution. At this time, it's not taking me out. I've been through this before. I know how this works. I can rebuild myself. I can rebuild everything, and it will be better and stronger this time too. The card is called "I Will Not Give." It's just it's a fierceness and a courage that you're possessing this time that says, I am not falling out of alignment with what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. I am not going to allow this to be a setback to me. I'm not going to allow it to destroy me like I have allowed these things to destroy me in the past. It's just not going to happen. You're proving to yourself that you can do it. That's ultimately what this particular challenge is, and why it hit when we thought we were seeing the light, and then it hit, because now it's like, but did you really get it? Did you really believe in yourself? Because it's really easy to say it when things are starting to look, I'm going to keep on going, things are looking good. But then when it gets tough, like that's where we falter and we fall back into our old patterns. This is where it's like, you can't. And this time you're not gonna. You're going to do it differently this time. You know, sometimes the win that we want, the win that we're looking for is not our, like we see it and we think that's our win, and that's not our win. We were talking about that yesterday, as well as earlier with manifesting. But that doesn't mean that you don't stand your ground and continue with what you're doing. Like, just because that one's not yours, that was a deterrent, that's fine. I still have this goal in sight. It's still right here for me. This is still where I'm headed. I'm still continuing to heal. I'm still continuing to do better for myself and have a better life and have better relationships with friends. And I'm going to be in a better, healthier romantic relationship. And my work is going to continue to improve. And my safety is going to continue to improve. All of these things are the things that this card is saying that you are protecting. You are protecting your vision. And you're not giving in this time. You are absolutely not going to give in this time. So the will position says that it may have thrown you off guard. It may have caught you unexpected. But this is not the first time you've been down this road. This is not the first time you've had that tower card hit you. This is not the first time that you have had to start over, if that's the case. You are too invested in what you have worked towards already to just walk away. So this is that fierceness. I'm not giving in. I'm not done. I'm not going to stop fighting, regardless of what happens. We finally get some room to breathe coming up here, though. And I mentioned it in the reading, the last two readings that I've done, where it's come up that breathing is the big relief and the success is still coming. But there was some challenges along the way, and you had to overcome those challenges in order to reach this point. So when we get to this card here, our air position, do it here. The air position has come up with the world. So the world is our ideals, our celebrations, our success, our jubilance, whatever word that you want to say. It is a time that comes forward. Now, the air position, I describe this when I'm doing my readings to people, because I actually do this in 3 rows. When I do a full reading, there's multiple decks involved. But this position is specifically about something that is happening. It's coming. It's in line, literally, with where you're at. And it's not something that you have to choose. It's just going to be presented to you. here it is. So, with the world in this position, I have a lot of optimism that something's panning out for us as individuals, and maybe a little bit as a larger group. That would be nice too if there's some wins for larger groups. But as individuals, something that you have invested a tremendous amount of time in, something that has tested you over and over and over, you have finally gotten so good at it that it didn't detour you this time, and it pays off. That at some point down the road here, sometimes I put a time frame on these things. I'm getting this really wide window because for some people, this is going to look like it's happening in the next few weeks, but for some people, it's looking more like 9 months. So it depends on how big and what your goal is and where you're headed ultimately. And maybe there's multiple wins along the way, and maybe we're all experiencing different kinds, but it's wanting you to look at that tower instead of despair. Look at it with a great deal of strength and determination to continue and to push, because that push, that final push, that's where you have to be. And that's where you start to see that world come forward. And there's a great deal of joy, and it's safety, and it's comfort, and there's love and success and feelings of all the stuff that you are looking for. The world is always a really good one. It is success. It is feeling happy as if everything has fallen into place the way it was supposed to, or at least for this phase, because that changes. Life is constant. It's ever changing. I talked about that in the reading yesterday. I wasn't I only had like a few people pop in at the end, so that it was a really good reading, and I wanted to keep doing it anyway, even though there wasn't anybody there to hear it. So if you happen to want to hear another reading, or you need some reassurance or anything along those lines, yesterday's reading is in the videos as well, and it all kind of ties in with this. So the next position is water. Water is where we have our free will. This is the situation that comes forward that gives us our choice. The wheel card comes up again. This came up on the first night. Again, with this idea of that ebb and flow, that up and down of things, and moving forward requires a certain level of patience and understanding that there's a process of things that occur. It's not always up, 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 up. It's up, 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 down, 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 up, 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 down, 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 up, 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 down, 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 down. Sometimes you get a little bit of an up, down. It just depends. You can do it however you want to. But it is the wheel of fortune. And in order for the wheel to reach the fortune, it has to continue turning. It cannot just sit there. You're going to be stuck in that position. You want it to turn. You want the wheel to turn. It is the wheel of life. You want it to change. You want it to move forward. You don't want it to be stagnant. I think that would be like so much more boring than some people like. They're like, no, I want it to stay the same. Like they would be so bored after a while. So boring. So this is where our choice lies. The choice is in deciding to continue regardless, working very, very hard, working consistently, working diligently, smoothly, balancing those ups and downs, allowing yourself to recognize that these things occur. Things are always going to happen. I mean, they're always going to happen. You're going to lose your loved ones. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose a friend in some possibly stupid situation. You might lose your favorite thing from childhood and just gone one day. It happens. I had a necklace that was given to me at my graduation party from my mother's oldest best friend, and she's one of the few women that I had a great deal of respect for growing up my entire life. She gave me a very beautiful white gold necklace, just a simple chain, and I wore it every single day until one day I took it off to have a test done, and it got lost. It fell out of the bag or something, and never seen it again. And it was like that was something that I intended to keep until I died. I was so like, what? Where is this necklace? But it only took me to a different state of thinking where I was just like, what did that necklace signify to me? What really did it? What did it mean? And there was why did I feel so emotionally attached to it? And there was a connection to a version of me that just didn't exist anymore. I wore that necklace in my graduation pictures. Actually, no, I wore a pearl one of my graduation pictures in my pictures with my baby, and with at my baby shower, and at some of my first jobs that were significant. And it was just that necklace was connected with all of these things. And regardless of what it is, whether you're talking about a necklace or you're talking about a friendship, because I could get into that as well. Recently, it's happened a few times, but recently realizing that there is just a level of disconnect between me and somebody that I love very deeply. Like, I love them as a human being very deeply, but there is a number of disconnects between my life and theirs that make it really difficult to relate to each other. And in the past, I probably would have viewed this really hard. This would have destroyed me. But instead, I realized I'm like, my life is changing and their life is changing, and we have just simply chosen different paths. I don't have to agree with their choices. It's not my life to make. And as long as they're happy, and that's what they tell me, that they're happy, then I'm just simply going to be happy for them. And that might mean that I don't see them very often, and I can't really talk to them anymore like I used to. I don't think that means that person doesn't exist for me in my life anymore, but I just have to recognize that this person that I thought was a big part of my day-to-day just can't relate to me anymore. And there's such a disconnect. It's like I'm talking about my life and they're talking about their life, and it's like two ships passing in the night. Like, we weren't even intended to ever meet. We weren't supposed to go down those same paths. And in the past, that would have really hurt me. But recently, I've been thinking about what it means to really progress and move forward. And that means that you leave friendships behind. That means that sometimes that you leave jobs behind and you get into a new field. It means that you leave relationships that no longer suit who you are today. And these are the things that are probably the hardest downward motions in that wheel of life, because it's our own doing. We're redistributing where this weight is and where this baggage is, and etc. And it's necessary. So the final card in the reading for today in this pull is the Queen of Swords. One of my favorite cards. It's absolutely Queen of Swords. I'll put it up to here as well. Such a powerful card. This is a powerful human being. This advice card, this is the wheel. If I didn't put the wheel up, I love the wheel. It's so beautiful. It's all encompassing. All of that energy, all of that change and transformation, all that power that you hold. That's life. There's a little higher self up here. So yeah, the Queen of Swords, Mother of Swords, whatever you want to call her. They talk about this as a feminine aspect, but it's genderless. It can be gender fluid on who it applies to. It's the energy of it behind the card. That's always what the cards mean. On rare occasion, I'll get a card and say we're referring to a woman or we're referring to a man in your life. But most of the time, when I'm doing a reading like this, it's too broad in general. So I'm just talking about the characteristics. This card specifically is talking about the characteristics of this individual person as being the type of characteristics that you should be embodying through this next period of time. So there's a period of time that is leading you to your world in order to get there. We're dealing with this wheel, and we have to make some decisions and choices in order to make that world happen. So this is the advice card. These are the characteristics that you want to grab onto and roll with. This card specifically is referred to as she serves a noble cause. The energy behind this character is one of importance, not just for the individual, but the cause of greater than oneself. There's something bigger here. The work that you are doing is beyond you. It's not just you that will see the benefit in it, but there are other people who are going to be better off because of you embodying this. You are serving this more noble cause. And so your actions are what empower it. The first aspect of this card, it definitely suggests that if you are struggling with this empowerment and this energy, that you should take some time to disconnect in nature outside of your normal routine and allow the power of nature to replenish and restore you. Sometimes that requires a hike in the woods. You might have to just go sit in a beautiful garden, anything that will help you get into a sacred space where you can visualize this energy strengthening and clarifying for you the actions that will need to be taken. Meditating in nature is always super powerful. But she's brilliant. The Queen of Swords is brilliant. That's the thing that always comes out about her. She is so sharp. She's sharp-minded. So she's crystal clear when she's seeing and hearing things going on around her and the things that are occurring. Her intuition is here. Her thinking is here. It's just knowing exactly what happens next, what to do next, how to handle this. So her intelligence makes her powerful because she's intelligent, but she's intelligent because of her wisdom. Some people will have this wisdom. Some people will have experiences and not have wisdom. Some people will have wisdom but not intelligence. She has both, and they work together. She's the sharpest mind in the deck. But because of this, she also has to be very principled. When you have a tremendous amount of intellectual power and you are being asked to wield it, you have to be very, very in touch with your principles, and you have to be very, very aware of your moral standing and what is important to you and the message that you're putting out there. Additionally, when you are in a position of this is a very regal role. This is a noble cause, right? You have obligations. It's not just you. So some of these obligations go beyond you. Some of these obligations might be direct and close to you, but there are going to be a significant amount of them that might be outside of you. And it gets really difficult to manage all of these obligations if you have not mentally prepared yourself for what that entails. recognizing that like this is a honor and a privilege to be in a position of this nature. You have earned it. You've worked your way up to it, but it's still an honor and a privilege to have reached this. Some people don't ever experience this level of mental clarity and sharpness. And of course that has these obligations, these consequences of it. There are repercussions to the things that you say and do. And so it is really important that when you're navigating this difficult stuff, that you don't leave wreckage in your wake, that you are careful with your words and you leave things intact so that they can continue to be picked up and strengthened and utilized again by others, even though it's no longer a part of your path. That doesn't mean that that is the end of it. That person or that job no longer matters to anyone else. It's going to matter to somebody else. Somebody else comes after you. So you're using this very clear intellect and understanding and wisdom, and you're wielding that power in a very principled manner. And you're holding your standards up here. You're always taking this higher position where you're not, regardless of how you're treated, regardless of how you're talked to. She does not falter, even when somebody is standing right in her face and talking trash. She knows it's bullshit. And she can honestly look at it and say, okay. Anyway, that is a mighty power to be able to go, anyway, and then move on. So extremely capable individual. It's telling you that you are capable. The card says you are capable. You are more than capable. You are able to engage what is around you and use it, right? And this applies not just to, environment in general, but sometimes we need to take a really deep look at what's going on right around you, right in front of your face. It might be right there. You need to take a look at how you can protect your environment, engage your environment, create a safe space in your environment, create a more principled space in your environment. Because after coming through this tower again, you are just not going to let it happen. You're just not going to let it go that way. That Seven of Wands said, no, not this time. Not this time. And you know that it's coming. You know that world is gonna fall. Every piece of it is going to fall into place, and it's going to be perfect, and it's going to be beautiful. And you know that you have the choice here in how you take these next steps. And so you should be stepping like that Queen of Swords, confident, capable, sharp, clear-minded. If you need to separate the emotion from the intellect in order to make a better decision, then that's what you do. If you need to engage the emotion to make a better decision, then that's what you do. You're capable of doing that. You're capable of being that open. Now, there is a downside to being the Queen of Swords, because the Queen of Swords in this mentality, it can become, especially if you do it all the time and you're in this position for a very long time, it's very easy to become kind of embittered about the fact that you're doing all of it, because it does feel like you're doing all of it a lot. And so you want to watch and be very careful that you're not feeling as though you're taking this on and you don't want to. Don't allow it to make you feel as though this is something that you have to always be or always do. It's just a period in time where this is your calling. This is what is needed. And so you do this now, and you get to that world position so that you can fall back into your natural rhythms and you don't have to be quite so bossy. It's kind of like, for anyone who is into kink or BDSM at all, there is a very well known, widely understood phenomenon where people who spend a great deal of their day-to-day lives being the boss, being daddy or mommy, um, being in charge, being responsible, having to direct people all day long. If they're into kink, if they get into that world at all, oftentimes what they want to do is just relinquish that title and be done with it. And that is an escape for an individual who has to be the Queen of Swords all the time. Someone like me, being the Queen of Swords all the time, when I have to do that constantly, when I'm in a job position where that's what I have to do constantly, especially if I'm like running a group of other people, it's so freaking exhausting, man. Sometimes I don't want to think. So if I'm in an environment for enjoyment where the individuals that I'm with are like really competent decision makers and the environment's safe and I know that, like, I turn into a different person. All of a sudden I'm like a little kid and I'm just like, thanks. So it really just, we need the break sometimes. And so this Queen of Swords is hard. It's hard. Some people embrace it and that's who they are and that's who they are always. And they're just, those are some powerful people. They're powerful people, but they're compassionate because they have principles. They're not like these reckless, like, just like, I don't care who I destroy in my way. Like, no, they're just very powerful people, women, femme, or at least in touch with their feminine aspects. Um, he said it's not gendered, but it's not just some like power trip. There's a different element to this. There's the aspect of the femme, of the woman in this that allows I'm not too much I don't have too much more to go. You probably won't miss much. But yeah, so this isn't just a power trip. This isn't just somebody coming in and taking over. This is practiced, principled, and purposeful. And when you've accomplished what you need to accomplish, you can let it go. So don't allow it to overcome you, take too much. Yeah, Hallie, that's me too. When I'm the boss all the time, when I was the boss all the time, when I was a tattooist, and that was my job, and it was to hold people down and hurt them, and be the boss and make them move the way I wanted to, and all those things. I was tremendously submissive sexually outside of that, just because of that. But now that I'm not like that, I've embraced my time, and I enjoy it. I enjoy being the Queen of Swords because I am a rather principled, powerful woman, and I like that. And that's where I'm going to be for a while until I get tired of it. But Benna, it was a pleasure as always to have you joining. Yeah, absolutely. I won't be on too much longer. I'm going to wrap it up shortly here, and so please feel free to watch from the back. And then I think I'm going to probably do a couple evening and a couple morning because I feel like this morning worked out really well. But the Wednesday evening just was like way busier. So I'm almost, maybe I should do some more evening. I don't know. Plus, I think sometimes the way that I talk, people would probably fall asleep, and that might be a good thing. It's like, come listen to me while you fall asleep. So yeah, big reading, big reading, big reading. We're all starting with trauma, and we're ending it. We're coming out of it, rather, not ending it, because we can't end trauma. We're coming out of this trauma with a different kind of sense of empowerment because we just recently did that. And this time we're not going to fall back into that hole. We're just not going to do it. Or more rounded, cuddly stepping. I'm only interested in or willing to be submissive to very rare types of characters. There's not a lot of men that I'm capable of doing that with. And they have to be like so competent and so capable. I really love King of Swords, Father of Swords, or the Emperor types. That's the only type of man that I submit to. I become a little kitten in their presence. All of a sudden, like, I'm here and I'm just like, this is how it is, and then they like say something. I'm like, oh, okay, but it's terrible. But eventually, even with those people, when I do become safe and comfortable enough, I know that I can be who I am in all of its aspects and like trust them that, that doesn't change anything. So I think that's important too. But yeah, it's a gentle patience. It's a patience. There's a I hate the term alpha. It has its uses, but mostly people use it wrong. Like they're like, I'm an alpha male. Like that means you have no family. Um, the term alpha sub is what I am described as in most circles, which would be I would naturally take a submissive position under a powerful man. It's just there's not that many powerful men. So I've decided that if there isn't a powerful man in the situation, that I will be the powerful man in the position. So that's where my dom came out. I have to know that things are taken care of, and if they're not, then I just simply will be the person. Yeah, no, alpha's not. There's no such thing. But it does have a role in kink where it helps to identify if somebody is not the typical. Um, and we don't use like beta. We use bottom, or like you can use bottom or top. You could call me a top sub too, and it'd be the same. Alpha was the term that they used to use, and then people started overusing the alpha wolf shit, and it was just like, God. So now I would be a top sub. But that's even changed, and I wouldn't even consider myself that. I would consider myself like a rare sub. Um, now I'm more dominant, and there's only going to be there's I met there's one particular person in my life that I met at a very down time, and yeah, the dog training, yeah, and he showed me aspects of myself that I wasn't aware of, and he helped bring a level of confidence to me that I was not aware of. And he did it in a way that was so, so impressive. It was just, he's so calm and patient and understanding. And it was just, I always felt like he was just helping me be a better person. And it was never for his own, it was always for me. It was always about empowering me. And uh, I've always tried to emulate that in when I became a dom, because he taught me to dom. And then so when I started doing it, I always try to emulate that, to be, if you are going to be in charge of a person in any aspect of their life, then it's your responsibility to guide them in a good way. It's not just about pleasure. Like, it can be about pleasure, but there's more than that. So in all aspects of life, I try to be a positive influence to others around me, and do live by example, and teach, and guide in whatever way that I can. So I'm just blabbing now. Anyway, I hope your afternoon is good, and thank you for joining in. And I will probably pop in Wednesday night again. I will be around Wednesday evening for my next one, and I have lots more good stuff to talk about. I have a whole list of subjects I'm going to randomly hit. So last night was what did I do last night? Oh, grounding, shielding, and cord cutting. And then I talked a little bit about cloaking. And today we started off with the Vision Board Pitfalls, which I'll probably talk about a number of times because that's such a big subject. But I have a list of other subjects. So every week I'm going to try to, or every show I'm going to try to do a full reading, talk about something specific, and then just see what happens. So thank you again for tuning in. I love you, Hallie. And I will probably speak to you sooner than Wednesday, but Yeah, I'm gonna sign off. I need to go get some lunch. My tummy's rumbling. Much love.